What's up guys, it's Smitty, back with another NBA video. Today we're going to be looking at the top 10 NBA players in 2022. I'd just like to mention that it's been a long time since I've made a YouTube video. Essentially what happened is I was about to make the top 50 NBA players list going into the season, but unfortunately my file got corrupted and I've been working on that video for about 20 hours, so after that happened I basically just lost all of my motivation to make any of these videos. But I have a bit of time right now, so I thought I would just go back and make another video. But yeah, anyways, I'm planning on posting every couple weeks now, so stay tuned for more basketball content. But before we get into this video, it'd be awesome if you could check to see if you're subscribed to my YouTube channel. According to YouTube analytics, over 95% of my viewers are not subscribed to the channel. So I'd really appreciate it if you could check down below and hit that big red button if you haven't already. Also, if you happen to enjoy this video, I'd appreciate it if you could leave a like rating down below. First of all, it lets me know that you guys like this type of content and I'll continue to make more of it, and it also helps spread my video to even more people. Thank you guys so much for your support. Anyways, let's get back to the video. Before we get into the top 10 players, I'd just like to take a look at some honorable mentions. In particular, I've chosen 7 players that I think you could argue to be in the top 10, but for some reason or another, I decided to keep them out of it. Our first honorable mention, I guess you could say at number 17, we got Anthony Davis. Everybody knows that Anthony Davis is one of the top defenders in the league, and over the last couple of years, he's been completely dominant. At some points even comparable to Giannis. But for some reason this season he's fallen off a bit. This could be due to his injuries, but it's just been a fact that Anthony Davis has been shooting inconsistently lately. When he gets back from this recent injury, hopefully he can step it up for the Lakers. I don't doubt that he will step it up once playoff time comes, but as of right now, Anthony Davis sometimes is looking like a detriment to the Lakers when he's on the floor. And for that reason, I can't quite put him in the top 10 players list at this moment, even though in the past he's been solidly in it. Our next honorable mention is Karl Anthony Towns. Cat is the best shooting big man by far, and it's not even close. He's been extremely efficient this year, and even though he had a bad season in 2020, I think this was due to personal reasons. But overall, Cat has definitely bounced back this season. The only thing holding Cat back from the top 10 is affirming his dominance with playoff success, as many of the players in the top 10 have had playoff success before, and Cat really hasn't done that much in the playoffs. I know that one season when he had Jimmy Butler, the Timberwolves were a decent team, but even in that season, I wouldn't say he was the best player on the team. Jimmy pretty much carried that whole squad on his back. But if Cat can prove us wrong this year when it matters most, I think he'll definitely sneak into the next top 10 list. The next honorable mention that we got is Paul George. PG-13 is a bucket despite the slander. Sure, he's been somewhat underwhelming this year compared to what most of us expected, but he certainly hasn't been disappointing. I don't see him cracking the top 10 again in his career because he is getting past his prime, but I had to mention him because he is still a dominant force in the NBA, and he definitely does not get enough credit for what he puts out on the floor. Next up, we got Jimmy Butler. Jimmy actually has a decent case for cracking the top 10 this season, and if you were to say he deserves the 10th spot, I wouldn't really argue with you. His ability to attack the paint, out-hustle others, and be a team leader is extremely valuable and underrated. However, he lacks a consistent three-point jumper, and at times, he seems not aggressive enough on offense. For those reasons, he doesn't make the cut, but I do love me some Jimmy buckets. Next up, we got Donovan Mitchell, who is one of the brightest young talents in the NBA. Despite the narrative that Rudy Gobert carries the Jazz, is simply not true. That responsibility belongs to Don. The only thing holding Don back from the top 10 is he lacks a bit of playoff success compared to those above him. Sure, he hasn't been a big disappointment in the playoffs, at times he's even been outstanding, but when you really compare him to guys above him, it doesn't quite stack up. However, this is not a problem though, since Don is so young, and soon enough I expect him to be on the top 10 list, maybe even next season. Next up, we got Devin Booker. D-Book is a straight assassin on offense. The guy can drop 30 points with 50, 40, 90 splits on a nightly basis, and at this point, his efficiency is ridiculous. He arguably has the most satisfying jumper in the game, excluding Steph Curry, and on defense, he is at least average. The only thing holding D-Book back from the top 10 is scoring volume, since he really doesn't take that many shots compared to the players above him. D-Book is really close though, and I wouldn't argue with you if you think he deserves to be in the top 10. This guy has a bright future ahead of him. The final honorable mention is Jason Tatum. Tatum is also an assassin like D-Book, but not the passive kind. Tatum's issue is his poor shot selection, and at times, even Jaylen Brown looks better than he is. But there is no denying Tatum's ability to carry a team on his back. He's been doing that since he was 19. If Tatum could be more efficient and selective with his shots, he would definitely be top 7 or top 8, but I personally have him just outside the top 10. In a few years, Tatum might be a top 5 player though, as he continues to develop each season. Now finally, we can take a look at our top 10 list. Coming in at number 10, we got Trae Young. Trae Young is currently the second best 3-point shooter in the league until Clay's return, and he is the third highest scoring player in the league on great efficiency. However, Trae still is a defensive liability, and this shows in Atlanta's record currently. I've given Trae the benefit of the doubt over players like Don because the Hawks made the Eastern Conference Finals last year, but I will admit Trae, D-Book, Tatum, and Don are all really close candidates for the number 10 spot. However, what does separate Trae Young on top of his playoff success last season is his scoring volume. This guy is just scoring like crazy and is one of the highest scoring players at his age of all time. I can see Trae Young one day being a top 5, maybe even a top 3 player, and right now I think he definitely deserves the number 10 spot, despite what people will say, and even you could argue him to be higher, as you'll see who's at number 9. At number 9, I got Damian Lillard. Despite falling off this season, Dame is still an elite scorer. He needs to get used to the new officiating, but once he does, I project Dame to continue where he left off the last few seasons. Currently, Dame is not playing like a top 10 talent, but I'm betting on his track record, and I am assuming this is just a small rough patch in his career. Like I just said with Trae Young, and even a few of the honorable mentions, I think you could argue that they are playing better than Dame right now, because the stats just back them up, but once playoff time comes, I think Dame will shock a lot of people if the Blazers can make it to that point, because once it's Dame time, nobody's stopping him. He's arguably the most clutch player in the NBA. At number 8, I got James Harden. Like Dame, Harden has fallen off a bit this season, but I think it's due to his decreased role with the Nets. With Kyrie's return, I think James will bump up his efficiency, and I don't think too many shots will get taken away from him, as he isn't shooting the ball that much anyway without Kyrie. This dynamic with the Nets and Kyrie Irving only being able to play away games is kind of interesting, so during home games James Harden will still be able to score, and like I said, I don't think even during away games that Kyrie will take many shots from him, so I can definitely see Harden maintaining 23-22 points per game, along with his 9 to 10 assists, but I think his efficiency will rise once he has these higher quality players playing with him on the floor. At number 7, I got Joel Embiid. Embiid is arguably the most dominant player in the league, excluding Giannis, but he does lack maturity, humbleness, and leadership capabilities. Embiid is essentially a Wish version of Shaq in the modern era, and could really use a sidekick like Kobe was. With that being said, a Wish version of Shaq is still a top 10 player in the game, and to be honest, Embiid has a pretty good jumper, especially for a big man. Once Philly makes the NBA Finals or the Eastern Conference Finals, I would consider Embiid a top 5 player, but until that happens, I'm going to have to slot him here. Embiid hasn't performed great when it matters most. Some people could attribute this to Ben Simmons and his floor spacing with the 76ers, and I think that Tyrese Maxey and the squad that they got going on right now is going to give Embiid more opportunities in the playoffs, but for now, the 76ers still aren't looking like that much of a threat, even though they are winning games, so I'm going to have to keep Embiid here for now. At number 6, I got Luka Doncic. Luka is also struggling this year. He's definitely a bit out of shape, and he hasn't been very efficient. But we have seen what Luka can do in previous seasons, and personally, I can't see him slowing down once playoffs hit. Luka is arguably the most promising player under 25 years old, and I think that he will eventually crack the top 3 players. I could definitely see why you would argue Luka as being higher on the list, but for me, I've seen what he can do in the playoffs, and having a healthy Porzingis and the squad that he's running with right now in the playoffs will be very scary for a high-seeded team in the Western Conference. I know that if I was one of the top teams in the Western Conference, I would not want to play the Mavericks in the first round. It's going to be a tough series for whoever has to go up against Dallas. At number 5, I got Nikola Jokic, the reigning MVP. Jokic has the highest PER in the league. If you don't know what that means, PER stands for player efficiency rating. It basically takes a bunch of stats of the player into a formula and outputs a number. And Nikola Jokic has been notorious for leading this stat in the NBA. However, I think PER is a little bit biased towards some stats, but overall I would say it reflects how much Jokic can do. He is the most well-rounded big man of all time. Yes, I said that, but he does struggle sometimes due to his athleticism. I could see why someone would put him higher, but his playoff success does not warrant a top 3 spot yet in my opinion, but I still respect the big fella, and I think he did deserve the MVP last season because he played in every single game. At number 4, I got LeBron James. If you've watched my channel before, you probably know that I've always had LeBron at the number 1 spot. However, after last season, it's pretty apparent why he's not there anymore. The Lakers struggled immensely in the playoffs, and even though LeBron didn't play bad by any means, you would think that the number 1 player in the league would still be able to carry their team even during unfortunate circumstances. However, I still think this year that LeBron is a bit underrated, and I think many people would put guys like Jokic above him. However, I have LeBron at 4 because he's been on an absolute tear recently. He's averaging the 2nd most points in the league at age 37, and man, this guy is just going off. I know his team isn't doing that great right now. I think they're hovering around the 8th seed in the West. However, that's nothing to do with LeBron. I think it's all to do with the spacing, and I mean this team is pretty old. If LeBron can get a little bit better help at the trade deadline, I think this Lakers team could be dangerous. They have a decent amount of assets to ship out. The problem is these guys just aren't molding. I think if they ship out guys like Westbrook, maybe Taylor Horton-Tucker, I think they could get a pretty good player in return. I've seen trades that send Christian Wood and other players like that to the Lakers, and I think that would be very beneficial for them. So overall, I think LeBron definitely deserves this number 4 spot, but it is the first time he's not number 1 on my list. At number 3, I got Steph Curry. Despite his struggles the last few games, there's no denying Curry's greatness. I think it's safe to say he's the greatest shooter of all time now. He just passed Ray Allen's career record for most 3-pointers made, and this Warriors squad has been on fire. I know they've lost their last couple games, but they're still one of the best teams in the league record-wise. I think you have to attribute the defense for Draymond Green, but also Steph has improved his defense a bit too. I know that he's been a liability in the past, but he's gotten a little bit stronger, and his conditioning is one of the best in the league. This guy is able to run around the court off ball, and the gravity that he produces on offense is insane. The floor spacing makes everybody else better, and I'm pretty sure every player in the league would want to play with Curry due to this reason. I think that Curry's off-ball movement is always underrated. However, he does get a lot of credit for his 3-pointers, so I think a lot of people will agree with me placing him at number 3. I've seen some people say that he deserves to be number 1. However, like I said before, these last few games have proved that Curry is actually human, and sometimes the 3-pointer just isn't working for him. However, once Klay comes back, this Warriors team is still going to be dangerous, and I would not want to play against them in the playoffs due to this man. At number 2, I got Giannis Antetokounmpo, the reigning Finals MVP. Giannis is the most dominant player in the NBA. I mean, this guy is one of the most athletic humans in the world. His match of strength, speed, agility, and physical dominance is something we've probably never seen before in this degree. I mean, the guy is able to run up and down the court faster than almost anyone and is still one of the strongest players in the league. That combination is just absolutely disgusting. I mean, his athleticism coins himself as the Greek Freak, and I think that's a very fitting name for him because he is a freak of nature. However, he has a few struggles. We've seen in the past teams like the Raptors build the wall against him, and it's really hurt his efficiency and team success. I mean, he has improved on his passing, and he can now actually shoot open three-point jumpers. However, it is still a minor flaw when you compare him against who I have at number 1. Overall though, Giannis is in a perfect system, and if you argue him as number 1 in the league, I mean, the stats kind of back it up, and I'm not going to argue with you. And I do really like Giannis. Like, honestly, it was really hard for me to put him at 2 because he's such a charismatic guy, and you can tell he's super down to earth, but when we're talking about basketball, I think it's safe to say he's number 2 because his versatility isn't quite as good as who's at number 1. Number 1, I think you've probably guessed it by this point in the video, it's Kevin Durant. Honestly, I don't think KD is the most dominant player in the league. Like I just said, that title belongs to Giannis. However, you have to consider that Giannis is in the perfect scenario for him. He's surrounded by shooters to take away his weakness, and he's also surrounded by great defenders. The Milwaukee Bucks team was literally molded around him. However, I think that KD is the best player in the world because of his versatility. On offense, I think he's probably the most complete scorer in NBA history. He can shoot from 30 plus feet, he can shoot the three-pointer at an amazing efficiency, and there's no stopping him in the paint, and there's no stopping him in the mid-range. He's just too tall, too efficient, and too good at getting to his spots. A great stat to look at is that KD is number 1 in points per game by far, yet he's only 6 in field goal attempts. I think that this stat particularly says a lot about KD's efficiency. And I'm not saying that KD isn't in a great situation. He's beside guys like James Harden and Kyrie Irving, who are all-time great talents. So obviously that is going to help his efficiency a bit. However, I think that you can basically plant Kevin Durant on any team in the NBA and he'll make a gigantic impact. Like, for example, if you were to put Giannis on a team with not great floor spacing, he's still going to make an absurd impact, but I don't think as much as Kevin Durant. You can place KD on a team with bad floor spacing and you'll still be able to get a bucket. You can put him on a team with just three-point shooters and you'll still be able to get a bucket. So for that reason, I have Kevin Durant at number 1. I would not argue with you if you have Giannis at 1 because the stats slightly say he's better, especially on the defensive end of the floor. But for Kevin Durant's versatility, I think that puts him above Giannis because, like I said, you can put this guy on any team in the NBA and he's going to make a similar level of impact. But anyways, that concludes my top 10 NBA players of 2022. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like rating on it. That'll really support this video and help it get to other people. Also, if you'd like to stay tuned for more NBA content, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel down below and you'll be up to date on all of the NBA content I put out. Anyways, I just want to thank you guys once again for watching this video, and this is Smitty, signing off.
Check it.